Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Olson. I want to give you a brief demonstration of drawing your hand from observation, which of course is our learning goal right now. This is my hand. Hi. And here's my pencil. I have my drawing pencil and my eraser and so on. So, as we talked about a little bit yesterday, you want to get your hand in a really comfortable position. So mine right now, I'm leaving it like this because this would be one of four that I could choose from, and it's comfortable enough to leave for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes, which is about the length of time that I would spend on my hand. I'm not going to draw the entire thing right now, but I just kind of want to give you an idea. So I kind of leave it like this, and I want to talk to you about the way I look at things, which is how I'm hoping that you'll start to look at things. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make when we draw from observation is that we let our mind interfere. Our mind tells us what we think a hand should look like rather than just drawing what it is that we see. So remember, what you want to do is to draw what you see. I usually have an anchor. So my thumb right here would be the anchor in my drawing. So the way I would start is, as I've explained before, really light lines. I go really lightly and I kind of like outline my anchor for starters. And so when I say anchor, basically what I mean is that everything that I draw will be anchored around this one thing. And the perspective at which you're seeing right now is a little bit different from what I'm seeing. And so it's not going to be entirely the same. So what you're seeing, in other words, is not exactly consistent with what I'm seeing. But once you get kind of like your anchor, you can go around. My eye basically follows the outline of my thumb like this. And while I'm doing this, I'm noticing different values right here. It's a lot darker, for instance, so I put in those darker values as I go. And you can be really loose and kind of expressive, and I see, I've got some creases in my thumb right here that I'm going to add in. So you can add all of those details in. You want to keep in mind that this is a sketch. So things don't have to be perfect here. In fact, I would expect them to be less than perfect. If ever you make a mistake, you can kind of go back and you can erase a little bit if you want to. But I would expect things to be not as clean as something that you work on for several days, which we'll do later. But right now, I'm just trying to get like an overview of everything. My eye's now jumping down here. I'm noticing these lines down here. So I would kind of like fill in like that a little bit, come around, and then eventually what I get to is my wrist and this rubber band and so on. So now I'm getting down here and I'm a little confused because I'm getting too far away from my anchor, which is my thumb. So I'm going to come back up to my thumb and kind of work on this a little bit. And now I'm looking over here at my other finger, how it comes outside of my thumb. And I can kind of like sketch in this area here, goes around, and I can see that it kind of comes up. The whole time I'm doing this, I'm constantly measuring. So I'm looking at the space from here to here, and I'm looking at the space from here to here to see if it's the same. And so I can already see right from here to here is bigger than right here. But my drawing is a little bit bigger than my actual thumb too, so I think I can probably get away with that. So I'm going to come up about like this, and my knuckle up here looks like it comes a little bit above my nail. So I kind of come up here and I measure this part, and I come down, and then I can see my finger, my index finger shoots out over here. So my eye follows that line a little bit. Now again, I'm getting kind of far away from my anchor, which is my thumb. So I come back here as like a point of reference, and I go, okay, so I'm kind of confused out here. It's a little confusing. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to notice this line right here, so I can start putting in some of those details along the way. And then ultimately I could put in lines here, and I go around like this. Now I notice like right here that it's much darker because my thumb is casting a shadow on my index finger. So I will probably like fill in some of this as I go. And like I said before, you can spend a lot of time adding detail. What we want to do is just kind of sketch and get an overview of about 10 minutes. So I go about like that, and I can see the bottom of my finger, my thumb right here, kind of takes over the bottom of my finger. So somewhere in this region, I have, my finger coming out like this and coming down again right here. It makes like a little triangle, and it's really dark in there because it's actually just space. So I kind of go about like that, and then I see like cracks and lines of my fingers like this. So I'm going to add in some of those details as I go along. Put in another little thing about like that. And I can see I just made a mistake. And this is the kind of stuff that happens all the time. I have one triangle coming out right here, and I've got a bunch of hand, and then another one coming right here. And so what I really want to do is then kind of adjust as I go along, which is going to happen all the time in this world. So I can see that it's going to be closer to something like that. So there's got to be more space between those two little dark areas. And so then this all becomes part of my finger and hand, and there's, like I said, there's little lines and values that I can add in. I got a crack here next to my thumb that I would probably add in. And then ultimately, I can see a slight edge of my middle finger down here. So I will actually, from my index finger here, I will actually then put in a real light line like this, which ends up being my middle finger, which is behind my thumb and my pointer. I can see the edge of my nail. I put that there, and I can see some cracks. And I'm just going to shade this a little bit right now, just kind of give it a little bit of value and a little bit of definition, but not really like address too much in it yet. Now I'm getting back to the point where I want to add a little bit more detail. So in my index finger right here, I would probably start tightening up some of these lines. The way I sketched them in originally is not ultimately how I will leave them in the end. I will want to go through and then put in some like nice contour lines around, kind of define some of it. I don't think we should just outline the whole thing, because my hand's not outlined like that. This edge right here, for instance, is really light. So I will probably leave that edge on my drawing a lot lighter. In fact, I can even peel off some because that line's really thin and I don't need it to be very dark. Other lines, like this part right here, and this, especially this line up here, is a lot darker, so I can add in more values there, or a darker line. And kind of sketch in some here, add some more values to the creases of my thumb. So I could keep working on this, but ultimately what I want you to see is that I'm starting very slowly and very lightly, and then I'm going back and I'm working kind of in piecemeal around my hand. Now if I was going to keep working on this, I would kind of bring this line down, and then I'll start negotiating my wrist, and somehow it comes out, and then back here I've got another knuckle coming out of my other finger, and that's part of this finger. But ultimately, I would go back in and start adding more values, because you'll have more time than what I'm going to spend doing this. So begin lightly. Start with an anchor, like my thumb is my anchor, and then just kind of start working around it. And I spend, this is the biggest part, 90% of my time looking at my hand and only 10% looking down at my drawing. That's how you draw from observation. So once we get moving, raise your hand if you've got questions. Otherwise, boogie.